Great.
Great, thanks, Aaron. I'll just maybe do a quick kind of reintroduction just now that we are, for folks who maybe were watching this after. Welcome, everybody. This is a joint meeting of the Kingfield and Lyndale Neighborhood Association boards and redevelopment committees. My name is Chris DeRoche. I am the co-chair of the Kingfield Redevelopment Committee, and we are speaking for our redevelopment committee and kind of the board. We are excited to kind of be doing what is our first kind of joint Kingfield Lyndale meeting, especially around development. So hopefully we'll have, looking forward to more of these, and excited for all the folks who I haven't met yet from Lyndale. So again, welcome and happy to be here. We are going to be talking tonight about the potential development at 3536 Nicollet. How these processes and how we run these meetings work is the developers who are proposing the property will provide a quick introduction of themselves, and then a presentation on the project that they are looking at. And then we will open it up to questions from folks who are here at the meeting. We have gotten some questions before, and we will be sharing those as well. And hopefully the folks will be addressing those in the presentation. How we do this is we ask folks to enter their questions into the chat. You can do that at any time. So if a question pops up while the presentation is happening, please throw it in the chat. And what I will be doing, just so that we don't ask a lot of either repeating questions, or if we get kind of similar threads, we'll be summarizing those and asking them. If you feel like I didn't ask your question correctly, or you want to follow up, please throw that in the chat as well too, as or if I say I'm not totally sure where this question is getting at, please feel free to throw kind of some clarifying questions or statements into the chat, and I will do my best to follow up on those as well. So with that said, I will kick it over to the development team. I believe, I think Sean, you said you were going to do a quick introduction, and then again, folks, throw your questions in the chat. Please keep your mics on mute, and I will kick it over to you guys. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Chris. Just a thank you to everyone for having us tonight. Certainly thank you, Sarah, for all your hard work in getting this coordinated, and Chris for kind of monitoring tonight's meeting. My name is Sean Sweeney. I'm the co-founder of Hall Sweeney Properties, along with my business partner, Jeff Hall, who's here tonight with us. We're a Minneapolis-based housing firm. Also with us is Kaisa Huddleston, our development associate, and Josh Jansen, our architect from Collage Architects. We've worked on several projects in Minneapolis over the past few years, and our focus is on neighborhood development. We look at sites, each one is unique, and we look to the area and the surrounding uses in the neighborhood for clues as to how to best redevelop the sites. We are very design focused. Design certainly leads the way on our projects, and we've been fortunate that the work we've done to date has all been very well received. And we're long-term owners. We have a long-term outlook. We invest in the neighborhoods that we build in, and that outlook allows us to build quality projects because we make a lot of decisions based on long-term ownership and long-term stewardship of the property. On this particular property, we were contacted last year by the property owners after their existing building unfortunately was destroyed in the unrest, and we've been working to reimagine it for a future use. The focus of most of the rest of our projects have been on micro units. We're one of the market leaders in that niche. We're striving to provide our units at a price point that's typically slightly lower than the top of the market Class A new projects that get built, but with what we think is the same quality of building, the same high design, and a great living experience for the resident. So we're here tonight to listen, to hear your questions, hopefully answer them, and open to any feedback you may have. So thank you again for having us. I'm going to turn it over to Josh, who's going to walk you through the most recent set of plans and touch on some of the prior questions that have been asked. So thanks again for having us. We appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Yes, and thank you everybody for having us tonight. I think what I would really want to do is in reading all the comments that we've received already from the neighborhood and comments from our last go around with the two neighborhood groups on 9/15. I'd really like to just go through some of the highlights of the project that and some of the influences that have sort of informed our decision-making process. So this is in fact our project here on 3536 on Nicollet. I'm sure you guys are, everybody's familiar with the site. It sits in kind of a peculiar location on the block where it's not necessarily directed towards 35th Street, not, sort of closer to 36th Street. So I think one of the things that we thought about early on was the access to this project and what a project of this size means for traffic. And I know everybody has traffic maybe on their mind a little bit. So we are required to do a minor TDMP, and in our process with the city and Department of Public Works, we did originally only have a one access point of a 2-level ramp onto Nicollet, and that the conventional thought was that was just too much pressure for Nicollet. We've looked at different sides of Nicollet, either the north side of our project or the south side, where we could have that access point, and it was determined that the south side, closer to the 36th Street cross street, would be more advantageous for the project. So obviously the parking consideration and access was very much thought of. So that will be a constant thread when we go through this presentation. So right now we're at roughly 201 units at a site that is roughly, it is 1.04 exact acres, so just over an acre. In some of the form-based decision-making, the new zoning code wants a building at this site to be no more than 8 feet setback from the property line. If you look to the north here, what's highlighted, that is an existing building, residential building that is reflective of both sides of the street along Nicollet, which is an archaic setback, probably along from the trolley line that went down. But it really is telling that, should we be pushing the building straight up to the property line? If we did, per the zoning code, it might just feel a little bit more overbearing. And I think in this stretch of Nicollet Avenue, we have a very strong focus on improving the public realm along this area. The traffic and whatnot is pretty intense. We have pockets of retail to the north in Olarepa and that corner on 35th. And so what we really want to do is create a nice pedestrian experience that goes down south to the commercial along 38th. As far as access, we'll just kind of focus in right here on our main access point from a vehicular standpoint, that we have a right in and left in both ways on Nicollet Avenue to go into our garage, and then you can take a right to circulate up to your assigned parking on the first level. You go down a ramp down here to the subgrade parking, where we have bike storage, actually ample bike storage on both the ground floor and on the lower level. Now, coming out of the ramp on to the alley is what we've proposed to be the best solution of a left out only and a right in only, and then providing a pretty gracious addition to the alley that would allow for people to pass if there is any sort of conflicts with two cars coming at the same time. So we thought the right in and the left out, coupled with that buffer, would alleviate some of the pressure on the alley. Now, all these spaces are assigned, and we can maybe assume that the 76 stalls that's down below in subgrade would be exiting onto Nicollet Avenue. And then a portion of the first floor ramp occupants would be also using the Nicollet Avenue access. So I know there's been a lot of concern, and this is a solution that we work through with our traffic engineer and the city of Minneapolis, and we would really welcome your comments, obviously, because although I don't live there, I do pass by here daily. So I am aware of the situation, but probably not as much as you folks are. So from going outside of a traffic standpoint, I think what the next thing to highlight is this setback. this 20-foot setback. We really wanted to find a happy medium between bringing our building right up to the property line and setting it back to maybe be reflective of a little bit of that 20-foot setback. So the items that you see here in green are very diagrammatic in terms of where we see the pervious zones in the project. So what we're proposing is to increase this public realm, and I'll get into a plan of the landscape a little bit later that talks to some of those things. But I'll just talk really quick on our public amenities, or sorry, private amenities, but our activated use on the first floor. So upon entry into our lobby off of Nicollet Avenue north, we're providing roughly 1,400 square feet of a co-working and gallery space, and then a elevated 2-story lobby with a mezzanine for sort of a fitness adjacent space, obviously like our packages and leasing office, and then a fitness area that anchors the southern end of the property. In talking about the setback a little bit more to that 20-foot, the building to the north is probably the biggest building on the block. It is a very traditional, roughly 38 to 43 foot tall, sort of dumbbell shaped, typical Minneapolis like apartment project, right? Very beautiful, ornate central entry, and its width is roughly, a pretty standard 60 feet. So we really wanted to try to emulate the rhythms of that building to set up kind of our spacing for the project. So what you'll see is a very strong knuckles and a very strong look at symmetry to try to reinforce that housing stock. Outside of our amenities that front Nicollet, through the garage, we have, like I said, a on-grade bike room, dog wash station, and an ample dog run that is along the alley side that would be fenced in. So I think I'll move up. So on the second floor, this is that fitness adjacent space that looks over to the lobby below. We're calling it wellness right now. I think it might evolve into a hybrid sort of wellness yoga studio. That opens up to our corridor and a little bit of a coffee function and toilets that are elevated off the first floor that serve a roof deck on the second level that's would get good south and west light exposure. It'd be a common, the program here is a little bit loose right now, but what we would like to do is bring, some level of ornamental tree up top so we can get that coverage and that buffer and that privacy from the alley space. And then also a certain level of liner here that would be private terraces for the people on that level. As you go up, the building steps back to reflect on floors 3 through 5 to reflect that 20-foot setback right here. And as we go up still, it steps back just a little bit more. There will be a common space on the northeast corner of the top floor, on the 6th floor, that looks on to downtown. The views are quite lovely. And I think from that, I will focus on the ground floor. And so this element right here, this what I like to call kind of the midriff of a project, it's right in the middle. We tried to really, after engaging with the neighborhood group, is making something pretty dramatic. We've engaged a landscape architect to roommate and come up with some ideas for us on how to make this public realm, whether it's accessible to the public versus private, or if it's reinforces kind of habitat. We've entertained certain levels of way we can deal with water on the site. So I think it's really ripe for ideas, and we're right in the throes of that right now. But I think this has developed, the landscape has developed quite significantly since the last time we spoke. One last note on the public access way on Nicollet. The property line in the road, you can see actually kind of bends here. And so what we were trying to do, I think, from the landscape plan, which I'll show you up here next, is really try to increase the boulevard. The boulevard is really quite small right now. So we were increasing the boulevard size for planting and just health of tree. If anybody is out there and goes by, you know, there's probably one tree that's salvageable that's been planted in that boulevard, and it's just due to being constrained too much. So our effort is to increase the boulevard size, increase the planting, and really dramatically pull back the first and second floor along the midriff of the building to provide a nice landscape amenity. So this is where we are with our design at present. It's an evolving process, just like a lot of things, but we welcome input on this. And if this is, you know, based on the comments that came in via email, it sounds like what we're doing here is trying to put our best foot forward into beautifying Nicollet and the pedestrian experience along Nicollet, providing some seating, whether it's, you know, right now we're showing this at entry for the residents. We have outside of our co-working space, an elevated platform that as the grade dips away a little bit, this platform is there. We envision maybe it's a table that's, you know, 365 weatherproof, and it allows for some outdoor working environment, excuse me. And then on the west side, obviously we have the dog run, and we've pulled the building away from the alley probably as much as we can at this point, unless we slam the building up to Nicollet Avenue, which I don't think we want to do, but we have pulled it back a substantial amount. I believe right now we're at 21 feet, and I think we're our setback is somewhere in the 16 range. So we're trying our best to pull the building as far east as possible. And I think that's about all I have, because I'm sure there's going to be questions on other things, but I will leave you with, you know, kind of rolling through our elevations. Excuse me. So our east elevation here with our 2-story volume, our main entry. You can see the grade end building to the right. This is the building to the north of our project. And I guess, you know, looking at the alley, you can see the intense grade changes. And I know that some people have expressed concerns on rain events, that a lot of the water goes from, you know, the high point obviously down the alley and just goes to 35th. And so I think we do every effort to throw plantings and trees. You know, we'd like to fit a tree back there. I think it'd be really quite nice. The canopy in the area is fantastic. And so I think we would like to enhance that as much as possible.
Josh, can you talk briefly about the scaling on Nicollet and how we try to make it blend into the neighboring building? And
I'm sorry, Jeff, you kind of cut out there. Just
can you talk about all the work we put into the front of the building and the scale along Nicollet?
Sure.
And how it steps and compares to the neighboring property to the north.
Yep, I think you know, from a scale standpoint, a width standpoint, these red boxes that you can see here, if they are red, in fact, on your screen, but they would be, you know, our masonry anchors to the project. And I think that their proportions, their window proportions, the amount of glass on the first floor, we're really trying to create an active, almost like an active storefront look. Who's to say that in the future that housing projects in general that provide the spaces can't turn into retail? And I think that this is kind of the language that we heard from the neighborhood. If we're not having the commercial here, I think it's trying to design that it picks up on those storefront rhythms. The midriff here, this big space, we envision it to be very tall, very lush, a lot of accent lighting. Yeah, I think all the proportions of the buildings try to harken back to sort of trying to be a little bit more serious in its architecture and still have some fun and whimsy at the first floor level.
And Chris, if you don't mind, I'll just add that someone asked about the environmental impact on the site. There is a plume of contamination coming from the east, which we discovered in our phase 2. And it won't, I think, affect our soil work, but there will be some vapors. So we will have a vapor system under the floor of the building so that the vapors are allowed to escape from the building footprint and not come up into the building. So that's an added expense we have as a safety precaution for the building, because that's obviously really important being a residential building. So other than that, I think that's the only action we have on our site. But when we do the excavation, we'll have to have a health and safety plan in case we come across something unexpected.
Yes, I'm actually just looking at the chat, so I'm sorry if I wasn't catching these things. Some highlights. Yes, of course, we're going to have an underground rate flow system for sure. Our units, yes, they are micro, but we do range from in the very high 3s to I believe we're just under 9, for our 2 bedrooms. So they do range. We do have I guess I can just zoom into our mix here, but at present we're looking at 98 studios. We're actually, the counts are a little bit different now. We have 5 more, so it would be 103 18 2-bedroom and 80 1-bedroom.
And Josh, I think Chris was gonna kind of go through that chat too.
Yeah, totally. I didn't know if I was like, oh my gosh, great questions. Like, so.
No, you're totally good. I think this kind of gets to some of the you talked a little bit about stormwater. Could you talk a little bit about stormwater, what you guys are doing, and also kind of what your requirements from the city are? I think there's been a decent number of stormwater questions in the chat, and then also I know some pre-questions specifically about stormwater as it relates to the alley, which I think you alluded to as well too. So yeah.
So I think at the very basic, yes, we'll have a rate control system that's underneath the building here. It's kind of one of our reasons for pulling the garage back. In just seeing sort of the amount of green here on the perimeter, I think it's our intent to keep the water on site, given the nature of the site that's there now and the amount of paving, and that was a flat roof, building. I think that I don't want to say definitively, but I would imagine that like what we're doing here is providing a better solution than surface parking. We have had conversations on going for grants for whether it be going above and beyond for habitat, providing sort of increased habitat, rain gardens, and then we've also looked at what the benefits would be to holding water above our parking deck for to allow it to evaporate. So I think we're doing all the necessary steps that we do for just about any project to try to make it a better solution than what's previously there.
And I'll just add that before, with the big parking lot, there's runoff that goes into the storm sewer in the streets. And of course, you get car fluids and things into that. So ours will be just rainwater hits the roof. And then we may have a green roof aspect. I saw a question on that. And but regardless, it'll go straight into the storm sewer. So it's really from rainwater, very clean, going right into the storm sewer. So the quality will definitely be better.
Well, one quick question that I think I had is have you looked at how the impervious surface on kind of your proposed site compares to the impervious surface that was existing on the old site? I believe that there was almost zero infiltration in the existing site, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. They do have little I won't lie, they do have little pockets of green and whatnot, but yes, I mean, I think that the high point of the site up here, especially kind of feeding, towards Nicollet as well, will be greatly reduced. So.
Awesome. I think someone answered this question too, and this is one of the first questions in the chat, but could you talk a little bit about some of your past projects and maybe even some that are around? And then another question off of that was, what is kind of your, I think it was, what is your largest development to date, or have you done any projects that are this similar size?
Sure, I'll step in and take that one. We've done several, as I mentioned earlier, several projects in Minneapolis. Nearby this one, 29 Bryant, which is a 6-story building with underground parking, similar scale to this at 29th and Bryant in Uptown. The Colo Apartments at 36th and Bryant. Also, it's a 4-story building, but also underground parking at that project. I was part of the team that worked on the AMP Apartments and the Garfield substation at 33rd and Garfield. Built that project. MN 46, which is over at 46 in Minnehaha. We've also, Jeff and I have a 125 unit, 6-story building with underground parking, very similar to this one, currently under construction at that point. Or excuse me, at this point, we're framing the building right now, started construction in the spring. Also worked on a couple of projects last year that were completed in Northeast. One was 112 units, the other one was a 29 unit project there. So this would technically be our largest unit count thus far. However, we've done several 6-story buildings with underground parking.
One of the questions that was a follow-up was, are they kind of similar unit makeups to this, especially in terms of kind of the micro designation?
Yes. Yep. Every single building we've done has been micro units so far. Yep.
Okay. One of the questions was around kind of the public facing, kind of the amenities that you have in the front. Are those going to be, do you view those as tenant amenities, specifically kind of like the co-working space, the gallery space, or are those public amenities was the question?
Sure. The answer is we don't know for sure right now. We'll have to designate them as obviously building amenities, but the project we're working on at 46th and Minnehaha, we have a similar co-working space and art gallery, and we are in several conversations and negotiations with various outside third-party groups to potentially partner with us and either manage that space or take some of that space. So the answer is we don't know yet, but it'll kind of depend on how that comes together. At a minimum, it'll be a building amenity, but the hope is that there'd be some way to incorporate it in the neighborhood certainly as well.
There was a question about a green back terrace, and what I think it was, what level was that on, and I think that was, and how high is it off the ground?
So it'd be on level 2. So if you're coming from the Nicollet side of things, coming up the stairs, 1 level to a green space here, and as far as level, I mean, you're looking at roughly, I'd say, anywhere from 12 to 14 feet, 16 feet off the ground.
One of the other questions about kind of like things like that were, where are all the building utility spaces? So for example, the laundry, mailroom, dog and bike wash space, bike storage.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Every unit will have in unit washer and dryer, so we won't have any common area laundry here. Every unit will have it. And Josh can touch on it. Most of it is on the first floor and or in the parking garage in various spots.
Mm-hmm. So we're working right now to sort of appropriately size based on the project, but this is roughly there, maybe a little bigger for our trash enclosure. Our packages is served off of a door here. This is right now in process, the leasing office. And then the majority of our mailboxes will be kind of out in the lobby space. Again, sort of not really fine tuning that at this point, but we are thinking about it and where those locations are. Trash is received and brought out through the alley. There's a dog wash amenity off of the dog run out here. and then a bike lounge that we can get some natural light into up high, so the bikes can still be secure, but still allow for some natural light in there.
Can you talk a little bit of kind of skipping from the building itself? Can you talk a little bit about affordability, what you're looking at in terms of rents, what your requirements are for the city for kind of in terms of inclusive zoning?
Sure, no problem. So we've got, as Josh said, right now, we're somewhere in the 196 to 201 range of units. We're still, as he said, kind of fine tuning that. The city gives you a few different options as far as affordable housing goes. You can include units on site. And as a lot of you know, it's a relatively new policy that has just come into play here in about the last year. So you can include units on site. You can actually pay a fee to basically pay for those units, put it in a fund that the city then uses to build affordable housing elsewhere, or you can supply other land for the city to build on. Since this policy has come into place, we've always included the units in our buildings. So this building will have somewhere between 16 and 17 units of affordable housing in it. They'll be scattered throughout the building, as they always are, at rents that are capped and determined by the median income in Hennepin County. So there will be those units in this building. And then the rest of our units, because they're micro units, at a little bit smaller square footages, are, we don't dictate the market rent, but if this was coming online today, the studios would range from $1,100 a month to $1,250. One bedrooms $1,300 to $1,500, and the two bedrooms, somewhere around $2,000 a month. That would be the range. Obviously that can change and may, but that's, as of today, that's about where it would be.
Great. Can we talk a little bit about sustainability? Any other kind of additional features in the on or in or around the building that you want to talk about? I think there was one question specifically about solar. I know you hit a little bit on kind of the green roof. And then another question that related to that was about LEED building standards. And if that kind of those standards or any other environmental standards are a part of your kind of design process.
I can talk about the sustainability, and Josh can talk about the lead. We'll do a bunch of things on sustainability. Solar doesn't really make economic sense in apartment buildings right now because the roofs are fairly small. But we will probably join a solar garden. So we'll get a certain percent of our power from solar. We will also use native landscaping. And then we will also make a contribution to the National Forest Foundation that will 2-to-1 for all the wood we use to create our building, make a contribution that'll plant twice as many trees as we used in our building. So those are some of the things we're doing on sustainability. We also work very closely with the utilities to do an energy audit, and they make recommendations to us as to how we can make the building more efficient and have a lower utility cost for our tenants. And we usually do most of what they recommend.
We also, just before Josh jumps in, we'll also do electric charging stations for EV vehicles. We've done that on every project we've done to date. That's super important to us. So we'll have those in there as well.
And I would say, no, we are not trying to achieve a LEED standard here, but I think if anybody has taken a LEED test and understands LEED, it's, good design is good design. And I think we're putting a pretty good foot here forward. So.
Yeah, Josh, I'm a LEED AP. I passed the test about a decade ago. Yep. So and I will say, in knowing the building code in Minneapolis, most of what we're just required to by code pretty much puts you at a LEED silver anyways. A little bit of a tweak gets you to kind of a LEED gold. And the reason that you don't see a lot of developers in town advertising that or having the certificate or the plaque in the building is simply because you're basically paying a $50,000 fee to get a plaque in the building. So a lot of people are building to those standards, but just not going through kind of the regulatory work to say that they did it and spend extra money.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about, I know you've obviously hit on this a decent amount, but parking, specifically in the building. And I think one of the questions specifically was around kind of how you determined what rate you're parking at in terms of the spaces, and if you feel like that is adequate for the building.
Rate as far as, are you saying how much it costs to park or just percentage of got it. Okay, sure. We have, and Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, our latest count is around 140 total parking spaces.
We're at 136, so we're at a 0.67.
Okay, which is in line with our other building. Because we're building a lot of micro units, what we've found is two things. One, parking is extremely expensive to build. And that translates into higher rents in certain buildings. Secondly, a lot of our tenants don't have cars. We have tons of tenants that are frankly between about the ages of 20 and 30, ride bikes, take transit. We have several buildings that have 50% parked, 60% parked. We have some even less. Have had no issues with that, and frankly, not overbuilding parking in an urban metro area that's trying to get away from car usage is kind of what we're trying to do. Some buildings have more, but this one at about 67%, I think will hit right about where we need to be.
Great. There's a question about in-house property management or outsourced. You kind of hit a little bit about long-term ownership, but can you talk about specifically about the management?
Sure. We've got a partnership with a local property management firm that we've worked closely with. We've actually co-developed a building with them, as well as worked very closely with them in several different instances. So they manage our portfolio, and anticipate they would manage this building as well.
Kind of a specific question about the gardens in the front, and are they going to be irrigated? Was the question.
Josh, you want to take that? You want me to? I mean, we have in-ground irrigation at all of our projects. So yeah, I would anticipate we would do the same here.
Yeah, I think with the plantings, I think we'd have to, how we're going to irrigate that. Are we going to reuse some water? I mean, those are the conversations that I think that we're really getting into right now. But I know that the effort is there to go down this road of finding a nice balance between hardscape and plantings and just placemaking. So
great.
I don't think we'll let it die.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the project timeline, kind of where you're at right now, what you look specifically? I think the interest for folks is construction, when construction will be happening. And I will just kind of add on a little bit of a narrative here, in that we've seen kind of some different development projects use some different methods during construction that have led to either less noise or more noise, especially in when we look at foundations. So can you talk a little bit about methods in terms of construction and when that will be, or when you propose that will be happening?
Sure, I'll touch a little bit on the schedule. Right now, so obviously we're here tonight talking to everybody. It's our hope and our intent to kind of take the feedback that we've been given and continue to adjust these plans to get them to a place where we feel really good about them, that we think is the best fit for everybody. Next step in the process at some point will be for us to submit a formal land use application to the city of Minneapolis, which will put us into kind of the formal approval process. We anticipate that will happen kind of this winter, happen over the winter, early next year type of timing. So while these things can change, often if I had to give an answer today, I would say we're probably going to start construction next spring-ish. It'll last 14 to 16 months, give or take, finish up in probably the summer of 2023. As far as some of the, and Jeff and Josh weigh in if I miss anything here, but as far as the constructability, a couple things we do, building, a lot of our wood frame is built off site and then brought in as wall panels. So they're not assembling the wall, each individual wall on site. A lot of that's done off site and then brought in, which keeps the framing quieter and faster. Before we do any construction, we're doing precondition surveys of the area. We have vibration monitors as we're digging. So if we ever set off a vibration that exceeds a certain, I don't know what not regulation, but a certain level, they get a notification on site immediately. They stop, evaluate what happens. That doesn't happen very frequently, but when you're doing underground parking, it's always something we have, because we want to ensure that we're never exceeding any acceptable levels of noise or vibration in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits of, one of the recent developments for us was to just very much like shore up our box underneath, underneath the first floor, and really move the project back from the building to the north, so we don't have to shore that side. So I think that's, shoring often is a culprit for noise on site, so that will aid.
And we're building a lot closer to homes on our current construction project, and we haven't had any complaints. Our on-site supervisor will be available whenever the project is operational, and they're very responsive to any concerns. I saw some comments that it'd be better to have a right exit out of the alley. I understand there's concern about the backup on 36, people getting on the highway there. So we did, I think, didn't we do it this way, Josh? Because it's a shorter drive down the alley. So something we should maybe think about. Any thoughts, Josh, on that?
Yeah, I just kind of noticed that one, and yeah, I'm curious to, it's tragic that we can't be in person and have people talk to us about like their experiences there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're willing to just make good decisions here.
And
I
we
think
wanted
that,
all the traffic to be on Nicollet initially, right, Josh? But the
yeah, right.
traffic guy said you
That
can't.
was the original proposal, and I think it was received with a resounding no, as almost being sort of disingenuous to the project in general and like the traffic flow. So we wanted to split it up the best way we thought we could. So
Yeah.
Chris, could you maybe give us maybe some further information on that and reach out and just so we can have a broader conversation?
Yeah, and maybe this, I don't want to put you guys on the spot or make a recommendation, but it might be, I know that there was a suggestion in one of the comments too about possibly going out and seeing that. And I'm guessing that there are neighbors who here in the chat who would be more than willing to talk through that or walk through that or things like that. So that can maybe be something if you work through Sarah, and Sarah can help coordinate if you wanted to go on site and see that. I'm guessing there are neighbors here who obviously live right behind that who would be more than willing to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah,
So
that's really helpful. It seems to be a pretty consistent message. So we have been out there, but we'll certainly check it out during rush hour, and happy to have some additional thoughts from folks.
So this is Matt. My wife and I are the ones that submitted that question in advance and offered that. We'd be more than happy to walk with you and check it out. It's
rush hour coffee. I see someone offered a rush hour coffee.
Well, and the other issue is that cars parking on the north side of 36th Street get right up to the edge of the alley, and then people that are getting frustrated waiting to get through the light at Nicollet. It's a two-way street, but they think it's one way because it's one way further down the road. So they just come barreling down the wrong way on 36th Street. And so accidents happen there frequently because of that.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to check it out. Matt, so our preferred plan was just to send everybody in and out on Nicollet, and we, unfortunately we're kind of pushed into doing it a little, having a second entrance. But if there's a lot of feedback, potentially we can take that to the city and the traffic engineers and explain that and see if there's another alternative. Certainly. So appreciate that very much. That's
sure.
really
Happy to help.
So I think
And I like the idea of a rush hour coffee, so I'm happy to do that at some point in the next week or two. We can coordinate through Sarah, maybe, if anybody wants to join us for 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's great. I think the only question that I've missed, and please, if I miss somebody's question, please throw it again in the chat. But is again about the alley, but it was more about, will the alley be reconstructed as a part of this project?
I don't know the answer for sure, but I don't think so. I mean, it wouldn't be something that we are doing most likely, Chris. It would be, the city may choose to do that given part of the process. Josh, I don't know if there was anything in Is there anything in the PDR ever about alley reconstruction?
I'd have to, I would have to bring it up with the planner.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
Chris,
not aware of it.
I don't think anything's been brought up to us, or it's not typically something that the city allows us to do as the, we don't own the alley typically, so it's sometimes tricky.
Okay, great. And
Hey,
then,
Chris,
yeah, go
could
ahead.
is it just safe to say if the exiting onto the alley were just reversed, that would be a step in the right direction?
Yeah, I've been following the chat a little bit. I think that there's some interest in that. And so, again, my recommendation would be to meet out with folks on site and
Sure.
talk and look at
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, great. I'm trying to keep up with the chat and trying to listen at the same time. So sorry.
So
So
the takeaway is that neighbors are suggesting that the exit be to the north on 35th.
Mhm.
So if that's wrong, let us know, but we'll do the coffee still for sure.
I think we have about 5 minutes left. There was another question about kind of windows lining up. Oop, the question's going away from me. Windows lining up with the building next door. The current apartment has a lot of windows. Will tenants be able to see directly in is the question.
I would say the windows would be no different than any other adjacency to any other housing projects in an urban setting. So window size, yes, our windows are a tad bigger than the others. Do they line up? Given the half story of the 3.5-story apartment to the north, it's it's hard to do that. I do think that we take into consideration the importance of datums of our adjacent projects, that what we're building next to. And so I think it's more on a large format scale sort of perspective, where this midriff of the building is yet smaller than the adjacent building, working with setbacks to sort of alleviate some of the height differential between the two projects. But as far as like getting into the fine tooth about lining up windows, I mean, they're almost there, but but I do appreciate the question.
Then I think maybe in one of the final questions, I know you touched on this a little bit in kind of the front ends, but could you talk a little bit about maybe some of the changes you've made since talking with redevelopment committees previously, and maybe even just some of the evolution? You've highlighted this already, but I think it's always interesting to talk about the evolutions that you've gone through and some of the changes that you've made in the design, and maybe even I'll even take it a step further and maybe some stuff that you would see evolving even going forward, as you move forward in the design.
Well, I think that the landscape along Nicollet, like this is a huge change, I think, or change, evolution. Obviously it's informed from the neighborhood and in our conversations, but it's the direction I think we were going anyway. I think the whole idea of where we started this process and looking at that setback of the building to the north, the importance of giving, and there's many examples down Nicollet that projects do, whether it's a sea of hardscape that creates a plaza to nice ride bikes. I mean, like, so where does this project fit in the line of like projects that have been done along Nicollet? So I think that the evolution really has been in the landscape plan. I think from a let's see here.
I mean,
There
John,
has been,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, just reinforcing, I think, trying to take that 60-foot width and break it up into a very familiar, regular way, pushing sort of that first floor back to give more of a retail presence and more of a traditional retail openings. I mean, it's very standard storefront, transoms, canopies, lighting that just create a nice public walkway. The only thing differentiating it from being a retail space would be retail signage, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So,
Quick question, Josh.
Yeah.
Do we have permission to post these as draft designs on our websites for neighbors to look at?
that would be, I guess, up to the ownership. John,
Jeff
Jeff,
and
do you have
John?
any? I mean, it would be no different than what you post, or have you just posted the main image?
Usually just the main image. I mean, rather
Uh-huh.
than emailing this whole package to everyone, are you comfortable if we post it as a draft plan of this date and put it on our website so neighbors can view it?
Yeah, that's okay, Sarah. You can do
Okay.
that.
So everyone here, I'll put it up on the website tomorrow and send you all a link.
I think some of the final questions about, and some, not even questions, but just clarifications on unit sizes and that sort of thing, I think would be included in that as well too, so.
Yeah, and we just to reiterate the unit size piece, Chris, it's the studio's roughly 400 square feet to 450. The one bedroom's 500 to 650 or so, and the two bedrooms about 800 to 950 or so. It's kind of the ballpark. Yeah, it's all right in there.
Yeah, those are net, so.
I think the one question that didn't get answered was questions about what work would be done on the entire alley. If you guys are using that, is there a responsibility to repave more of the alley because it's in poor shape or not?
We got that one, Sarah. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I
Yeah.
missed it.
No, it's
No.
okay.
Okay, and I think we're about 2 minutes shy, which is great. I'll maybe just kick it back over to you guys if you wanted to say anything in conclusion, and then kind of some deliverables out of this, as Sarah mentioned, we'll post that, and then hopefully Sarah maybe connecting with some neighbors about possibly setting up a kind of an on-site walkthrough, I think is a great idea. So I'll kick it back to you guys for the last minute.
Yeah, I'll say something quick and then I'll let Sean wrap up, but thanks for your time tonight. We really appreciate your comments. As Sean said, we want this to be a really great neighborhood asset for, many decades. We'll own it long-term. We'll be driving by it a lot. We'll be involved in it a lot. So we want it to work. So we appreciate your input a lot, especially on the traffic and the alley. I can tell you, the economics are challenging. We always want it to be the perfect building, and there's just always some trade-offs along the way. Costs have gone up, as you know, because of supplies and COVID a lot. Rents are kind of flat the last couple of years. So we have to do 8% affordable now. That's a new requirement. So you can see how everything gets squeezed. So we're really working on efficiencies in the building, working very hard at that. And at the same time, trying to really hold on to that great design and as much sustainability as we can.
Yep. No, I think Jeff hit it well, and I'll just end. I don't know Josh Dibley, but I love your comments. You wish it was taller with less parking. We're maxed out. The new comprehensive plan in the city, maxes most of Nicollet at 6 stories. But you'll see. I mean, I know you've seen a couple projects south of us at 42nd. You'll see ours, and I think over time here you're going to see more and more buildings like this on the transit corridor as Nicollet. And as Jeff said, there is, we will have 16 affordable units in the building. So we're happy to be able to provide those in a changing area like this as well. So yeah, thanks so much for having us. We look forward to some coffee and talking about parking and driving.
Great. Thanks again. And thanks for everybody for joining.
All right.
We are
Thank you.
closed.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
All right.